Happy Halloween, everybody. It's time for a little 49ers trick or treat. Will the 49ers secure the bag of candy or of new players at the trade deadline, as it might be? And what to look forward to in the second half of the year, where the improvements are coming from, all on today's episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers and appreciate all the new listeners alike here on Locked On 49ers. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss an episode. We're with you every day breaking down the San Francisco 49ers. So come along on this journey with us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, Croc. We're going to do a little 49ers trick or treat today where I ask you a question, you ask me a question, and it's either a trick or a treat for the 49ers in the second half of the season. And I think a big topic here with the 49ers during the bye week is the trade deadline. So I want to ask you before we get into some of the questions, and if you're with us live on YouTube, a little special edition before I go out trick-or-treating, as you can see. I am Chewbacca, my son, big time into Star Wars this year. He wanted to be Darth Vader, so I said, okay, I'll dress up. And I love the one-piece costumes, Croc. Like, I'm not going to spend time in hair and makeup. It's like a Chewbacca onesie, dude. And I'm like, yes, one piece, I'm done. I'll go out with you trick-or-treating. Mom's going to be Princess Leia. Our cat is Yoda, so we're good. We got the whole fam in, and I
got two questions though, Peacock.
Okay.
So first question, they make Chewbacca outfits to fit people as tall as you?
I had to go double X with it, and it fits. And yeah, it's just a hair short on the legs, but plenty of width. It's actually pretty high quality. Feels good. It's basically like a onesie with a hood, right? So there's no mask. I'm not even going to wear any paws or anything like that. It's essentially a Chewbacca onesie, and I'm into it. I like it. It's actually more comfortable than I thought it was going to be.
All right, and then the second question: can you make the Chewbacca noise, the sound?
I can. I might have to debut that a little bit later in the show, though. But so one of my heroes growing up, when I was about 8 to 10 years old. Do you remember the movies, the '80s comedies, Police Academy? You don't remember those movies? So there was a character named Jones. And he did like crazy sound effects, but everything was like with his mouth. And like they kind of got crazy with it because they made like out of 10 Police Academies. I don't remember. I stopped paying attention to like Police Academy 4. But Jones, I love Jones. He was my favorite character, and he made all these sound effects. And when I was younger, I'm not surprised I'm doing something with a microphone because I thought I was going to be like voiceover actor doing like cartoon voices because I was like the kid in class that did all the weird voices and messed around all the time. And so
you were going to be like the uncle on Full House.
Yeah, not Uncle Jesse. He was the rocker. Who was the other uncle? Dave Coulier was the actor. I can't remember the uncle's name. Yeah, exactly. But I'm kind of glad I didn't because it's tough for voice actors out there because they got A-listers doing all the voices for cartoons now. You got to be like Steve Carell and Denzel Washington and Seth Rogen and like all these like famous people, Robert De Niro, to get a job voice acting for cartoons. When I was growing up, it was all these like specialized voice actors doing all these cool cartoon voices.
Over the last couple of years, one of my favorite movies to watch. I watched it with my kids, and then all of a sudden, I just was like, "Wow, this is an amazing movie." But Sing 2, awesome movie. But when you look at who the characters are, it is all A-list celebrities like Scarlett Johansson and like women like that. I mean, just a ton of them.
That is on the to watch list is Sing 2. We haven't seen that one yet. I want to go to the trade deadline. Are you dressing up, by the way, Croc?
I'm dressing up as a retired football player.
A retired football player and high school football coach, Coach Crocky. It's a good costume. You nailed it this year. The trade deadline Trick or treat, Croc. Is the trade deadline going to be a big treat for San Francisco 49ers fans, or is it going to be a trick? Is it going to be a tease this year at the trade deadline for the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, the 49ers have been a team that is as aggressive as any team around the league when it comes to the trade deadline or really just making moves. So I'm definitely going to go with treat here. And if I had to guess, I mean, I'll throw a couple of names out there that just kind of make sense to me. But Jadeveon Clowney, a guy who's on Carolina Panthers right now, potentially just saying, "Hey, this is not for me. This situation, I'm too old and late in my career to deal with what y'all got going on." Yeah, trade me to San Francisco 49ers. But
Trying
also
to cross
Kendrick
off
Bourne.
every team on the list. At some point, he'll have played for all 32 teams in the NFL at some point.
Right.
Jadeveon Clowney, the ultimate, but could be a difference-making journeyman pass rusher.
Right. So him and then I mentioned Kendrick Bourne. I don't think the 49ers have to go out and get a guy that is this bona fide wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, but can you get someone that is a legit solid depth piece? And I think Kendrick Bourne, a guy who knows the 49ers offense, understands what they're going to ask of him and what to expect. And you know what you're going to get from him, get your few catches, maybe get a drop here and there, but he's going to make some plays, an awesome red zone receiver, and a guy that's going to bring a ton of energy to the 49ers room. Veteran Kendrick Bourne now, because it seems like yesterday he was an undrafted rookie wearing number 6 in the preseason, then wearing number 10, and then having to give up number 10 to Jimmy Garoppolo once he was traded there, switched to 84 and wore that and got a lot of money with the New England Patriots. But I think at this point he may be somebody that they say, you know what, let's if we can get a 6th round pick for Kendrick Bourne, so be it. And I think that helps the 49ers because it's hard to say, well, if an injury happens, but we've seen so many injuries to the 49ers so far. There's still no Jawan Jennings. We'll see when he returns, hopefully soon. But obviously, Brandon Ayuk not coming back. And then you're having to really depend on Ricky Pearsall, who I thought was awesome against the Dallas Cowboys, but also Jeff Cowling, who probably good, but those guys, they're just not as experienced. So hey, can we just get a little bit of insurance? And I think a guy like Kendrick Bourne definitely helps with that.
I think it's going to be a treat. And that's only for fans that aren't expecting Max Crosby or Myles Garrett or even a reuniting with DeForest Buckner. I don't know if that's in the cards, but I think the 49ers are going to do something. And so I think it's going to be a treat as long as you temper expectations. More of a, the names you mentioned, Croc. Za'Darius Smith is another name I'd throw out there. The Clowneys, the Za'Darius Smiths of the world, those type of players that have been around the block a little bit that might not be in the current teams they're on future plans. And that's the type of player the 49ers might be able to get. Someone in the last year of their contract, that type of thing. And look, that wouldn't stop me from calling the Browns and asking for Myles Garrett first. But I think the Niners are going to have to settle on Za'Darius Smith when they call the Browns. And so that's the type of move to expect. I think it's going to be a treat. And the 49ers are going to get something. The wide receiver one's interesting because you laid it out pretty well. Like, you've got to prepare your depth for potential future injuries you might have for the rest of the year. And you're already down one wide receiver for the year. You got a couple other guys that are banged up. We know how Debo is kind of in and out of the lineup, and you can kind of expect him to miss a game down the stretch and get banged up because of the way he plays. And then you've got rookies behind that. And I don't want to see Ronnie Bell, who's currently on the roster, and I don't want to see even Kendrick Bourne, who could become on the roster. Like, I don't want to see them taking snaps away from Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowley. But in the event these guys get hurt and maybe the rookies aren't where they need to be all the time and Kyle Shanahan can't trust them, would a veteran player make sense at wide receiver? I think it would, but I would focus on probably the defensive line first. And for those fans that want an offensive lineman, someone's going to come in and take Colton McKivit's job, that's going to be a trick. That's not going to happen. I can't see that happening. I don't even know who would be out there that would beat out Colton McKivitz. And I think the 49ers like their offensive line more than a lot of fans do. We got some questions. Some in the chat, some on Twitter, and we will get to those next in our Halloween mailbag. And if you're in the chat, hit us with a trick or treat question. Make it spooky if you need to. And I'm not done talking about the trade deadline because I think that's the most fun part of this bye week for the San Francisco 49ers. And what's the biggest improvement the Niners could make in the second half? All that coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. For example, you want to go see a Warriors game, NBA season's going, getting pumped on that, NHL tickets. You want to go see your San Francisco 49ers or maybe a college football game. You can do all of it, and in a huge stadium, it might be hard to search through all of those seats, so Game Time Picks will really help you dial that in, find exactly the seats you want, and you can get fantastic deals on last-minute tickets as well to not only your favorite sporting events, but also concerts, comedy shows, and theater events near you. All-in pricing, you got to toggle on the all-in pricing feature. It shows your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Of course, you get the views from your seat, panoramic style, and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference with their lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Croc, I want to go to Twitter here and a question about the trade deadline. And Eric wants to know, why wouldn't you make a deal early this week if you are targeting someone with the buy? Wouldn't you want something now as opposed to next week, reducing the risk that player's exposure to injury and can provide ample time for them to find a place in the Bay and, also get them ready to play and get them into the playbook? Do you think the 49ers should be moving fast and have maybe already moved to get guys ready during the extra bye week?
Real quick, as far as looking for a place to stay and things like that, or even preparing and, reducing the risk of injury, those guys, whoever it would potentially get traded to the 49ers, they're currently practicing right now or they're working out. So there won't be any downtime for them outside of just having to travel and then looking for a place to stay. In my experience with athletes that aren't 100% sure about their future with a team, they're just going get a room in an extended stay hotel. And it's actually like a win-win situation. It's not super expensive. They have kitchen for you. You have a bedroom. You have somebody that comes and makes up your bed every day. If you want to cook, you got a little stove and whatnot. They have breakfast there. There's all kinds of perks to the extended stay. And then if you are traded or cut or whatever the case, you can just pack up and go without any long-term commitment. So that's what you see a lot of guys when they first get somewhere, if it's not someone that's going to be somewhere for a while, which I think at this point, especially with the 49ers, whoever they get right now, it's probably just for the rest of the season. As far as, I forgot the other part of the question.
I think the main part of that is, so the question is, why not get a guy in so they can get ready to play sooner?
Okay, yeah.
An extra week during the bye. And that makes sense. And I guess you could get them in the playbook, but I think technically if they traded for somebody, they couldn't practice. There's no practices this week. They're off. So I guess you wouldn't need to bring a guy in until Monday or Tuesday because they can't practice right now anyway. But you could at least get them the playbook.
Right. Yeah, that may be something that they, do. You also kind of want to wait till the last minute. Like, when is the actual deadline?
It's Tuesday.
So you got some time.
Tuesday.
You don't want to have to overpay, right? Like, a lot of these teams may be trying to really get rid of a player. So if you know that, and obviously there may be other suitors, but you want to get that price down as much as possible. And the best way to do that is kind of wait till the last minute. And
I bet there's teams that are still on the fence. Like on the Peacock and Williamson show, we brought up the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are 3-5 right now, and they're playing the Raiders. If they go lose to the Raiders and they're 3-6, like, pack it in. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going anywhere. There's too many good teams in that division, in that conference that, maybe it's just not your year. T. Higgins, could you get a lot for someone like T. Higgins? I don't know if the 49ers would be a fit for someone like T. Higgins, but there's certainly players that they could potentially move and position themselves better for future years. And I think there's a number of teams like that. The Cowboys, I could see going either way. They end up going 4-4 and winning this week. Then maybe, they go trade for Travis Etienne or something, get a little bit of extra juice on offense, and then they start getting some people back. And so I think this week could be pretty big for a lot of teams. I think last week was huge for the Rams. I think we talked about this, Croc, that like the Rams, I thought were about to sell everybody, Stafford, Kupp, whoever. And then they look pretty good with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. And if they look good again and win, and they beat the Seattle Seahawks, they'd have a piece of first place after this week. So it's Seahawks Rams. That's an interesting game to watch for 49ers fans this weekend. And I still think the Rams could probably go either way. I'm still not a believer in the Rams, but they got some good young players on defense that are improving. And when the offense is going, then they can compete with a lot of teams. So I think that's part of it. There might be some teams like, hey, let's talk Monday because I want to see if this team can compete. And they're going to tell us a lot by how they play on Sunday. So I think there's some teams that are still pretending that they're going to be competitive this year.
I have a trick or treat question for you.
Okay.
The 49ers, as far as we know right now, they're expecting or hoping that Christian McCaffrey is back after this bye week. All right. So is it a trick or treat? Are the 49ers getting the Christian McCaffrey that they're used to seeing? A guy that is offensive player of the year, a guy that is Mr. Do-It-All, a guy that's catching, 4, 5, 6 passes every game. He's busting off these big runs. Will you expect the same Christian McCaffrey, even with these Achilles injuries that he's been tending to and hasn't played a snap this season, not even in the preseason?
This was going to be one of my trick or treat questions for you too, Croc. So we're on the same page here. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. I mean, it's going to be a treat to get Christian McCaffrey back. He brings a lot to an offense. Is he going to still be that Christian McCaffrey? I mean, they had to put him on IR, and he even when he was eligible to come off of IR, they didn't open that practice window. So it was close enough that they had to wait until after the bye, even to open the practice window. And I don't even know if he's going to be on the field for week 10. An even bigger game is the following week. The Seattle Seahawks are coming up. You sweep the Seahawks, that goes a long way into potentially winning the NFC West. So that's a really big game. Are they going to wait to unleash Christian McCaffrey in that game? And then when they do unleash him and he's ready to play, is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be 90%? Is he going to be not quite as quick and explosive as he was before? And because an Achilles injury can be very serious. It's kind of the same question about Dre Greenlaw. Is it going to be a trick or a treat when he comes back? Because usually with a full rupture of an Achilles, that player is not the exact same guy right away. And it might not be until, the beginning of next year that you see the same Dre Greenlaw that we're used to seeing. So I almost think it's a trick because I can't say for certain what version of those players we're going to see in the second half. It's going to be a treat to get him back, but I don't know if we should expect to have like, oh, cool, he's back 100%, same exact guy that we've seen.
Well, I think the 49er faithful are definitely hoping that he's the same guy because, the red zone struggles have been there. I feel like over the last few games, it's kind of getting a little bit better, but not ideal and not where you're used to seeing it. And I think a big part of that is because there hasn't been Christian McCaffrey out there. And I think he takes a lot of pressure off of the guys. He puts a lot of attention on himself. And even with that, he's done a terrific job of making sure, hey, I'm going to make sure that we get the ball in the end zone no matter what. So getting him back, I think that's one of the biggest things. Even if he's not 100% himself, I think he could still be that legit red zone threat, at least for the rest of this season.
Yeah, and you know that Christian McCaffrey is going to play his ass off if he's on the field. And that's one of the most impressive things he does, just the way he plays, the way he prepares. And, I think the red zone, because the Niners haven't been great at running the ball in the red zone, and you would think that Jordan Mason would be a perfect guy to pound the ball into the end zone, pound that rock when you get down there. And I don't know if it's like it's an offensive line thing, if it's a scheme thing, if it's, he's not picking the right holes when things get really condensed and defenses are expecting you to run down by the goal line. But I think absolutely Christian McCaffrey could help there. And obviously in the passing game, because 49ers haven't thrown the ball a lot to Jordan Mason. In fact, it seems like they're a little bit more willing to throw the ball to Isaac Guerrero when he's been in the game too. So that'll be an interesting mix if all three guys are back and healthy with the 49ers and how they'll disperse all those guys, because I think Jordan Mason and even Isaac Guerrero played good enough that they should belong on the field. But we thought that about Jordan Mason last year, and he almost never saw the field when Christian McCaffrey was healthy. So if I had to guess, and they say, hey, Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey is good to go this week. 25 carries. Let's go. That's what I kind of expect. I don't know if that's the smart way to play it.
I know that the Guerrero, it's a much smaller sample size, but is there any part of you that wants to see Guerrero get more carries in the game than Jordan Mason?
I just think it's different, and I think you should be able to utilize their skill sets. Here's the thing that stinks is Guerrero has the ability, former wide receiver, former track guy, to hit the edge, to make big runs, to catch the ball a little bit better out of the backfield potentially. But man, what'll be a trick for the 49ers faithful is if he is missing blocks in pass protection. So does that take him out of the third down back category again, right? And obviously Christian McCaffrey would help all of that. Because if there's any time Christian McCaffrey is going to be in the game, it's going to be as a third down type of running back. But I think they all have a different skill set, and I think you could utilize all of them. But Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to tell the defense what he's doing either. That's why he loves Kyle Juszczyk, because he can do a lot with him in the pass and the run. That's why he likes Christian McCaffrey so much. He can do anything, and the whole playbook's at his disposal. I think it's maybe less like that with the other running backs. And so I don't think he wants to be like, hey, we got Mason back there. It's first down. We're going to run it. Oh, we got Christian McCaffrey back there, and it's 2nd and 6. We're going to pass. I don't think he wants to tell defenses that. So I'm kind of fascinated to see how that works, because the other guys deserve to play and they deserve to be on the field. And Christian McCaffrey should probably be smart coming off Achilles tendonitis. And let's hope he still is ready to go after the bye, because we still don't know that. Oh, we got some good questions here in the chat. I want to get to a trick or treat about the division foes for the San Francisco 49ers. And what's the biggest thing the 49ers can improve in the second half? Next. This Halloween special of Locked On 49ers, sponsored in part by 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. And it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, and agonizing overtimes, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for fans like you. The fans who are first to the parking lot, who are last to leave. We see you. You know what else gives me fan fuel? It's seeing plays like the Hail Mary, right, from last week with Washington and Chicago. Like, that gets my juices flowing. Seeing George Kittle rumble after the catch, seeing Brock Purdy all pumped up after a big play, seeing all the defenders run down to the end zone and get a snapshot after creating a turnover. Those are the moments that fuel me. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey or getting through a mile-long list of to-dos so you can be ready for game day, check out the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot. It's here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide. And the next segment of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And it's a great way to feel like, if you feel like you're left out, 49ers bye week, maybe that's the action you want to get in on at FanDuel. Bet on Seahawks, Rams, bet on the Chicago Bears to defeat the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe you can bet on the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Dallas Cowboys, and so much more. Season-long bets. You can find it all. Prop bets, in-game live betting at FanDuel.com. So join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Croc, I want to go to the chat here. And
have we not recorded on Halloween before?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It didn't cross my mind to wear a mask, but I'm seeing in the chat, they're like, wear your guys' mask. You actually have a costume on, your Chewbacca outfit, but
Yeah.
I didn't dress up for the occasion. So next year, I'll come I will be going all out for Halloween for those of you who watch on the YouTube channel.
Okay. Fantastic. I like it. Who is trickier to beat for the division crown? And who would be a bigger treat if the Seahawks lose or the Rams lose? So what do you think? Who's the trickier team to beat for the division? And what's a bigger treat for the 49ers? Seahawks loss or Rams loss this week?
I'll start with the trickier team to beat. And I think it's definitely Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they're sitting up top right now, top of the division. But when I think of Arizona, they just have some explosive, dynamic playmakers. And we don't view their defense as this scary defense or anything like that. But Kyler Murray, he could just do some things and make some plays that is hard to game plan for. And the Rams, they're last right now, but they can easily go on a nice little run and win some games. But Arizona, they're kind of a wild card, and a team that I feel like is only going to continue to get better throughout the season.
That's a tough one for me because all these teams are so tight right now. And I still think my preseason prior of the Seahawks is the team that the 49ers are most likely to really have it out with down the stretch. But I feel like the 49ers have the Seahawks number more than the other two teams. And it's more important for the 49ers to beat those other two teams so they don't lose the tiebreaker to those teams. So I think I think you're right. The trickiest team is the Cardinals because I'm still not sure what they are. And I think they're going to fade, but I'm not sure. And I wouldn't mind if the Seahawks would knock off the Rams because I think the 49ers are going to handle their business against the Seahawks and take care of that. So if the Seahawks take care of the Rams for the 49ers, Niners are going to take care of the Seahawks. And then you got that tricky team, the Arizona Cardinals, late in the year that you got to figure out yourself. How about this one? I like this. What about bringing home Dan Brunskill at the trade deadline?
You can never have enough O-line depth. I feel like Spencer Burford is always kind of banged up. Aaron Banks is always kind of banged up. You never know if they're going to be out there on the field. I feel like everyone else, they've been pretty good. You can expect a missed game here and there from Trent Williams, but the guard positions specifically, I think that's where Daniel Brunskill could really help the 49ers if one of those guys go down or two.
Yeah, and he's a super sub. He could play potentially all 6 places on the offensive line. If John Feliciano wasn't healthy and coming back now, I would say Brunskill because then he could go center, guard, left guard, right guard, even play some tackle in a pinch, and that would make sense. But I really think the 49ers offensive line addition is probably the new flexibility of Spencer Burford to potentially bounce outside and play some tackle that he's been practicing at. So you might have a 4-position versatility with Spencer Burford as a backup. You already have your current backups, and then you get John Feliciano back. And I think he's that second half addition on the offensive line. John Feliciano, who has a similar bit of flexibility to Dan Brunskill, can play center and play guard for the 49ers. What about Chase Young? What about Charles Omenihu? Arden Key, former short-term 49ers that have made an impact for the 49ers. What about bringing one of those guys back? A lot of fans like to bring back ex-49ers. We talk a lot about, the DeForest Buckners and the Kendrick Bournes and, Omenihu, Key, Chase Young now. What do you think? Mob Squad wants to know. Get a comp for him.
I don't have a take on Arden Key, but Chase Young specifically, scrolling through social media, and you know what I continue to see? New Orleans Saints fans, because that's where he's at with the Saints, right?
Yes.
I've seen New Orleans Saints fans complaining about his effort. And I'm like, that sounds all too familiar. He played very well for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. But outside of that, there were a lot of, heading into the Super Bowl, there were a lot of questions about Chase Young's effort heading into that game. If you can't get up for conference championship games and divisional round playoff games, what are we doing? So to have those same issues coming up with a totally different fan base, to me, that means, that might be a guy I have to stay away from.
I think I'd lean that way too. I don't think they were super jazzed on some of the run defense, some of the run fits. That's why I kind of lean towards someone like Za'Darius Smith. He's just kind of a pro. He's got enough size to set the edge for you. He can give you some pass rush ability. He's not going to break the bank. I wouldn't be upset. Like at this point, whatever. Drop 2 first rounders on Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. Like, just go for it, right? I wouldn't hate that. I'm usually like, let's hold on to those first round picks. Niners haven't had a lot of them recently. Finally had a chance to spend one, and then they could go trade him again. I think it's very unlikely. I did see this, and Mob Squad comes back with another name here, Trayvon Walker, and he says Larry Krueger was talking about the Jags trading Trayvon Walker. I don't know if Trent Baalke would do a deal with the San Francisco 49ers, by the way, but I just don't think a guy like that's going to be available with that much time left on his deal. He's only in year 3 right now. He's got a 5th-year option. I would take a flyer, and he's shown some flashes too. And
he's
so,
played, I think, better this year.
yeah.
Now here's the thing: when you're drafted as high as I believe he was #1 overall pick. When you're drafted that high, you have a certain level of expectations, and I don't think he's met that.
Right.
But he has played well. Like, he's not just this bad guy, this bust. You know how people felt about Solomon Thomas. Like, they don't feel about him the same way 49ers felt about Solomon Thomas during his tenure. So Walker, getting him right now, like you said, with so much time left on his contract for a 3rd-round pick, I'd have a hard time seeing that happen.
DJ Reader is a name. Fish and Chips throws out there. DJ Reader is one of the most phenomenal runs stuffing defensive tackles in the NFL. If he was somehow available, the Bengals, no, he was on the Bengals and then went to, or did he go to the Bengals? Oh no, he's on the Lions. Yeah. 2-year deal with the Lions he signed. I was thinking he went on the Bengals, and if they went on the sale, no. DJ Reader's not going to be available. It's tough. DJ Jones is another one, former 49er. His name keeps coming up. I don't know if he's somebody that would potentially be available, but the Broncos are 5-3. It doesn't seem like they're in sell mode right now. So the pickings might be slim. You might just be like, look, there's these 2 options, and they're like pick swaps. They might add depth. So it's up to what teams are in the Think Young thing, because I think the Saints are one of those teams where they're a 2-win team right now. And I think both their wins were the first 2 weeks of the season. They've looked like garbage since then, but they get Derek Carr back. If they look better with Carr, do they not trade? If they look terrible still with Carr, do they start selling pieces? They re-signed. I thought Kamara would be a guy that's on the trade block, and they re-signed him to a 2-year contract. I don't know. I cannot figure out what the plan is for the New Orleans Saints, man. They're just spinning their wheels. I don't know what they're doing.
How are the Broncos 5-3?
I don't know. They've had they played the Panthers last week. They've had a pretty soft schedule. Sean Payton's a good coach, I think. And Bo Nix has started to play a little bit better, but it's pretty flimsy 5-3.
Okay.
In my opinion. Broncos fans might beg to differ. Last trick or
I
treat.
just look at the 49ers, it's like 49ers 4-4, and I feel like, man, 49ers are better than 4-4. And you see some of these other teams around the league, and it's like, how are they doing that? And even, Washington Commanders, I was rewatching that game against Chicago, and it was kind of up and down. But one thing is very clear. That kid, Jayden Daniels, very talented quarterback.
Oh, yeah. And Cliff Kingsbury's doing a phenomenal job with him. I think it's pretty clear that Cliff Kingsbury's more of a coordinator than a head coach, and he's making things, I think, easy for him. There's a lot of first reads that are open, gets out and runs on the move. And so that's all coming together phenomenally. And just Jayden Daniels making some fantastic throws. Again, he played a lot of college football too. Remember, we were talking about was I talking about? I get confused with my Peacock and Williamson and my Locked On 49ers sometime. Were we talking about we were talking about the guys that played a lot of college football, older prospects. Trey Lance, we saw how that went. You see how it goes with Brock Purdy, who was in college for 5 years. Anthony Richardson's getting the Trey Lance treatment now. They're playing Joe Flacco at quarterback because they think they're in it, and he gives them a better chance to win now, and they're at 4-4.
44% completion percentage. Like, people are like, it's drops. Like, look, there's not enough drops in the world to justify a quarterback completing 44% of his passing level. You're just not seeing the field at all.
No, I totally agree. I don't even remember my point. What was I talking about?
We were talking about Jayden Daniels, and he played a ton of years in college. He played several years at Arizona State, goes to LSU, plays another 2 years. So I think he spent 5 years in college and had a lot of experience. He played all 5 years, which, the COVID kind of threw some things off. So guys had an extra year, but he played 5 years. So he gets to the NFL. And here's the thing about gaining more experience. And this is just for every position. When he got to LSU that first year, he was not what he was the next year. So this is a guy that it took to the 5th year to really come into his own as a pass. And then it was clear, hey, this guy's there. I was tweeting out after about 4 or 5 games because I felt like people didn't want to admit it, but I started tweeting out, Jayden Daniels is the best player in college football right now. Like, I expect Caleb Williams to go number 1 overall, but Jayden Daniels, I'm like, he's the best player, and he's carrying his LSU team. Their defense is terrible, and it's like, well, okay, if I have to throw for 300 yards and run for 200 yards every game, then I'll do that. And he did. I'm like, this is the Heisman. People didn't want to give it to him because he lost a few games, but he was awesome. But I do think it took the experience, and now you're seeing that play out as a rookie. He's been through everything. This is a guy that when he left Arizona State, the players went to his locker room. His locker was taking all his stuff out of his locker, saying he was sorry, he was trash anyways. They didn't want him there anyways. He goes on, win Heisman, number 2 overall pick. And right now, I think he's a lock to win NFL Rookie of the Year.
I mean, he was Brandon Ayuk's quarterback, and Ayuk's been in the league so long that he's already on his 2nd contract. So that's how long he played. And Bo Nix was in college even longer. Bo Nix had more college football starts than any quarterback in the history of college football ever.
Yeah.
So
Bo Nix not playing as well as Jayden Daniels, but
no.
I mean, 5-3.
Looking a little better.
The defense, as someone said in the chat, defense has been stellar in Denver. Has a good coordinator that's trying to, Sean Payton, head coach, trying to, set him up for success.
2 more real quick for you. One is just a statement. I think the 49ers record of 4-4 is a trick. Some people think they're lucky to be 4-4, like it could have been worse. And I guess I could see that if that free rusher maybe sacked Brock Purdy and Purdy fumbled at the end of the Cowboys game, and maybe that starts to take a turn. But the Niners are literally 2 plays away from being 6-2. If the Niners are 6-2 right now, and they looked exactly the same in every other snap of the season except for 2 plays that they made to get those wins against the Rams and the Cardinals, and those games were complete giveaways by the 49ers, everyone would be talking and thinking about the 49ers completely different, and they could have played exactly the same. So, and they'd be a 6-2 team. So I think there's a little, and they're like top 6 team according to DVOA, and they're high in offense and defensive rankings and DVOA. And so I expect the 49ers to improve drastically in the second half of the season. Under Kyle Shanahan, the Niners have gone on runs almost every year that they've been healthy in the second half of seasons. And my last one for you, Croc, is Brock Purdy. Trick or treat on Brock Purdy. Is he going to go make himself $60 million, making this run in the second half of the year, going deep into the playoffs, maybe even hoisting a Lombardi and getting everything? Or is it a trick? Is he maybe going to flame out a little bit? And we're going to be sitting here all offseason talking about, man, I don't know if we should pay Brock Purdy.
I'm probably going to take the easy way out here, but I'll say this. I think he will get paid $60 million. But I think it'll be more so because that's just the market for a solid starting quarterback in the NFL. As opposed to someone that I just want to give $60 million to. Like Dak Prescott got $60 million. I don't think anybody wants to give him 60. Trevor Lawrence, whatever he got, I don't think anybody wants to give that to Trevor Lawrence. Tua, I don't think anybody wants to give him $55 million a year. But because that's where the market is, it kind of dictates guys getting paid. But and Brock may be better than some of those guys, but I wouldn't have paid those guys. But right. Because they're paid, then Brock has to get paid a certain amount of dollars. So I guess that's kind of taking the easy way out with saying, yeah, he'll get it. But I think there's an asterisk next to it for me. I think he's solid, good quarterback. And you don't want to go through what 49ers have gone through at the quarterback position. But do I want to pay him $60 million a year? If I'm the 49ers front office, I feel comfortable with it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, you'd rather not. You hope you slide over $49 million, and he's like, okay, cool, I'll take that. You're like, okay, good. Let's go.
I tweeted out something. I said something along the lines of like, I wouldn't want to pay him over $45 million. Yeah. And I just kind of left it there. I just said that, tweeted out during the game, left it there. 200 comments on why, you're an idiot. He's going to get there. Do you want this and that? Like, no, I'm just telling you what I wouldn't want to pay him, which I would pay him a solid amount. Like, for me, he's more, how much would I want to pay Baker Mayfield?
Right. Yeah. And he's coming after those guys. So he's going to get more. He's going to get more than Tua. And he probably deserves it. If Tua deserves it, Brock deserves it. But I think there's still some to be earned there for Brock Purdy. So it's going to be fascinating down the stretch. Thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween and be safe out there. Croc and I back next week right here. Lockdown 49ers.
That was good.